Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth series. This time, we will be discussing changing alignment in our alignment discussion series, and this is probably the last one for the alignment series, because we talked about introducing alignment, using it in your campaigns as cosmic alignment, in each of the alignments, coming to the end and talking about how changing alignments can be implemented and worked and stuff like that. Before we get into the discussion, as always, we're going to do announcements. I'm going to try to start putting timestamps so people can flip through the chapters if they need to. But the announcements for this one, always less than 5 minutes. You can time me. Here we go. So, the Inn of Planar Crossroads, still working on at least when we're recording this, we're still working on our webpage, the iopc.com, to make it more of a mirror for our content and have a spot where make it easier to support us. So usually we refer people to either Patreon or Subscribestar. You can go over there if you want to, if you know you want to support monthly. That'd be a good option. And then if you don't want to do that, we'll have hopefully a spot on the website where you will be able to use PayPal or something like that for a direct kind of one-time thing. And supporting the Inn of Planar Crossroads at any level gets you access to our Discord, even if that is a one-time support. So there you go. That is how we work it here. And we encourage people to become part of the Discord because that's where we tend to release our PDF stuff when we start making it. Like Adventure Academia, that just should definitely be finished by the time this comes out. If we ever release that PDF-wise, that's where we would release it for all of our patrons, is they would have a downloadable PDF there. So, there you go. I think that's everything for the Inn of Planar Crossroads right now. I'm not sure when this will come out, so do look forward to some collaborative content between the IOPC and Bomb Squad / Avenue Studios. Well, maybe Avenue Studios for sure, but Bomb Squad maybe, depending on what all goes on. We'll see. So, Lord willing, that'll all work out. Now that's everything. So, we've got Dan and Kristen and Levi. So, Dan and Kristen, what's up over at Bomb Squad?
No, too much. We are Avenue Studios, and we are working on getting our Twitch streaming up and going. So by end of April, beginning of May, you might start seeing us on Twitch there. So check us out. We're also on Rumble, YouTube, and podcast. We do actual plays and a little bit of discussion stuff. Hopefully we'll be transitioning into more discussion stuff, and our Patreon games will go live on Twitch once we have that set up. So that's what we do. We are hoping to branch out in other systems, but we do a lot of Open Legend right now, which we love. Check it out, openlegendrpg.com. All the rules are free. And you can support us as well on Locals and Patreon and become a part of our forest here. And we have fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's us.
All right. And Levi is our spotlighter. So what you got?
So I'm going to be discussing Deadly D8, who I spotlighted in the last episode as well. They are a Pathfinder 2nd Edition based channel. They have fun animations dealing with different rules, concepts, and archetypes or items of certain interesting sorts. They do some interviews, mostly with Pathfinder 2nd Edition designers. They go over the lore of Galarian, which is the setting in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Well, and first, but they do it at the timeline that 2nd Edition is within. They're interesting. Stuff is well made. A lot of it's not too long. Good channel.
All right. And I'm a sucker, as people that probably know about the, Laws of the Multiverse series we have. I'm a sucker for doodles and art and stuff like that to help you learn. So they have those things, as well as animated. I was watching a stealth check Pathfinder 2nd Edition animated. on their channel. So funny stuff that gets animated out of the different games that they've played. I want to do something like that for the End of Planar Crossroads too, but time is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It marches on whether you do or not. So, let me see. I think that's everything for announcements. Anybody got anything real quick before we go into the discussion?
Let's chat.
Let's chat. Now we're gonna chat. Dun, 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 dun. Oh. Okay. All right. So I think Levi was starting us off this time.
I was. So I think an important starting point for this is if you are going to have alignment as a actively thought about part of your game, deciding how you want to go about changing alignments is very important, because without that, it is hard for a lot of versions of character change throughout a game to be properly represented if you don't know how you're going to handle the changing of alignments, right? There's many stories about like people learning how to more care for not just the group but the broader world, and that would be part of moving more towards good. But at what point should you mark that on your character sheet? I think in many ways changing alignment in this sense works best if you and your GM have discussed that this is part of a character arc. Either you want your character to go on, or you feel like they have been going on.
Mm-hmm.
In this sense, it is... You need to not just, like, write on a piece of paper that the alignment has changed, but you do need to also, like, show in-game what those differences are, and to have been like role playing out that difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, for characters to change and develop where alignment matters, they need to be able to also shift that. And depending on the system, you might want to try and find ways to minimize mechanical penalties, like allowing them to move to an archetype or some other thing that fits with their new alignment, and that change in power being a in-world manifestation of their changing worldview and beliefs. Because otherwise it just feels bad to change alignments, even though it makes the most sense for your character.
Mm-hmm. I think that's good to go on your point of you have to actually be showing that difference in the character if you're the player, because if you've got a character that's constantly looking out for themselves, and then that's what they do and that's how they are, and then they gradually start shifting good, well then they should be behaving differently too. They should be different. Like if say they met a friend that they had an NPC that they had been in good contact with, maybe it was a contact in the underworld or something, and they come back to town, well that character that knows them and their past should be like, you're acting kind of different, what's up with you, whether in a good way or a bad way. And the worlds that we play our games in aren't quite like video game worlds. They're much more alive because our imaginations change them and mold them and shape them. So having that be there is important, that representation of the change. And like you said, sometimes certain systems are more strict with that than others. And I think that goes into the things we talked about with especially the lawful characters, that the order of the universe does not necessarily mean that they are absolute Judge Dredd style lawful neutral, this is how it is type of thing. Even lawful neutral can veer more towards law or more towards neutrality or more towards lawful good or more towards lawful evil. And there's this kind of spectrum of what is acceptable in order and what is chaos, and there's that spectrum between in which they fall into those major groups, rather than saying, like a paladin who doubts his faith does not necessarily fall right away. And that's kind of the classic example we see. Paladins, at least in Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons further back, paladins, monks, clerics, these type of character classes all had restrictions on their alignment. And since we've discussed alignment for this long, and if you're coming in on it this late, you know by now that I do like cosmic alignment in games. Cosmic alignment is something that they end up fitting into, not that is conformed to them. And these characters, it's understandable that there would be, like, monks need order, because you don't get to be as strong as a monk, at least this fantasy monk, without having some idea of order in your regiments, in your lifestyle, in what you do, how you live. So it makes sense for them. That doesn't mean then that they are always going to be lawful good or lawful evil or lawful neutral. They can swing back and forth. The paladin example is where most restrictions ends up happening, because even clerics can usually be within one step of their god, their deity.
Mm-hmm.
Paladins can't. Paladins, at least old paladins pre-champion versions of Pathfinder 2e, which, again, opinion, much better way to handle the idea of a empowered Gish type of warrior than saying paladin and then saying all these alignments can fall under that. Paladin represents lawful good. That's how I say it is. But anyway, that's a side tangent. The reason that it's so important on a paladin is because that one single alignment is what matters. If they stray from that alignment, they lose their powers. They become a crappy fighter. And that's the meme. They don't have to lose their powers right away. And so this class functions as a stand-in for any class that has an alignment restriction. They don't have to lose their stuff right away. A paladin who's starting to fall away from what his deity would want or her deity would want would be talked to by that deity, would be sent missives or signs, dreams, portents. They would have those things from their deity because their deity obviously cares enough about them to give them special powers. They're going to care enough about them to be like, hey man, you're starting to fall away. What's going on here? What's the deal? So, because that's how all the deities talk to their
yeah.
Like, hey man, what's up?
Like
They're
a
just sitting
concerned
back
professor.
they're sitting back like a big Lebowski, and the paladin's all complaining, and then he goes, well, that's just your opinion, man. So.
What a good deity, actually.
That's Caden Kalian as a deity. He's just like,
yeah, it's true.
That's your opinion. It's just your opinion, man.
Like, you haven't been partying with your bros nearly enough. I'm sorry, I don't know if, like, you're one of my champions.
Dude, when's the last time you got blackout drunk, bro?
Like, are you even part of this frat anymore?
The Church of Caden Kalian is just one big frat.
Yeah.
I mean, they're good dude bros, but they're dude bros.
Yeah. Wholesome frat.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never pee on the rug. That's the most
Right, like they're the frat that they might have socially pressured you into drinking, but then they'll like appropriately like get you on your side and like check in on you throughout the night.
They'll hold your hair back while you puke.
There's the puking corner, the recycling corner. Everything's organized.
So there you go. That's our riff against Caden Kalian. But
yeah, I mean, I think he might enjoy it.
I mean, certain characters would.
No, I mean, I think Caden Kalian might enjoy that he's the wholesome frat god.
Yeah, he does kind of know what he is and not care to live it
He's
out.
vibing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for that, if you want to look at alignments back on the story, back on the topic, I did hear a story once that I'm not sure where the origin is. So if you do know, you can leave it in the comment section below. Apparently, there was a ogre that had found a possessed lawful good sword, and the ogre has poor wisdom saves, right? So he's dominated by the sword. The sword makes him go out and do nice things. It makes him go out and protect seek out and protect a little village and keep the animals safe from the wild mythical beasts out there. It makes him attack the bandits and stuff like that when they come around. And gradually, over the course of the story, I'm paraphrasing, the ogre starts to like the ideas, not necessarily agree with the paladin, with the lawful good sword or anything, but he starts going along with it without protest, because the people in the town start being nice to him because he's being nice to them. He's protecting them. He's not acting like he used to act. And so his actions have changed, and as his actions are changed and he is changed, we see in the story him changing, and he eventually becomes that good character. He's not the smartest, he's not the best at that, he's not the most moral, but he becomes a servant of cosmic good in that sense. And it was done much better in this story because they told it like a story. I'm paraphrasing for the sake of the video, but that's a kind of gradual change you could get behind. It's kind of the opposite of what we talked about in our chaotic evil discussion about the shackled or the bound demon or something like that. It's a creature that can learn, that is not innately evil all the time. It can learn to be good. And so it is an interesting avenue to take, and it might be a way you could talk with your GM and be like, I want to play a big bad ogre dude, but I don't want to be evil. And so you can have that. You can have that idea. So that's one story that I have for the people on how it might be useful.
I like that a lot. I think I heard that on it was Red from the Crab YouTube channel. I can't think of his name now.
Oh yeah. He probably found it in the same place I did. Yeah.
Yeah, in Reddit or something. Yeah. No, that one's good. I like two of because we've discussed it several times, is the idea of, and we just talked about in Chaotic Evil, of two PCs that have a relationship where it allows an evil character to be in there, and depending on how the story goes, one could pull the other one way. I always have like the classic, like the big baddie dude, but he has a soft spot for this like younger child, or for something that represents innocence in a sense, and that can, it's a classic kind of film story arc. And to have that transformation, I'm definitely looking at it from more of a narrative sense, because if you are playing in a system that requires that shift in the mechanical things, like Levi was saying, transitioning in some way, because I think there should be negative consequences, of course, but having it be part of the story where they come through the negative consequences to the positive and have to undergo this change. But that for me, again, as being a narrative focused type person, I love that idea of, over the course of the story, you get pulled one way or the other by your choices, by the choices of others, by your surroundings, and having that goal in mind as you're playing through the game too.
Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking also like the GM to be aware of when their players aren't playing their alignment, and like where they're clearly going off in a different direction, and they're like, hey, like at what point do you need to step in and say, I think you need to change your alignment,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that it's appropriate for GMs to at least approach players.
Yeah, I mean, when your paladin starts kicking puppies, you're probably not doing it right. So.
Yeah. Although, even if we're not going at this from, like, the sense of someone who has mechanical necessity, I think it might be interesting to, like, have kept track of it and let your player know, hey, like, if you're thinking of, like, changing alignment, I think you're making great progress towards that. Like, this is where your alignment was, and this is the sort of thing you've been doing as of late. Is that the sort of thing you want to, like, cement in with your character? I could get you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think it'll make their play easier because it's what they're doing,
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking because we were just making a joke about Jacob's Lab, one of the players in that show, Katie, she very much she enjoys, like, she has an idea of her character, but then she starts playing, and she very much goes with the flow of the scene and discovers the character as the game is going on.
Mm-hmm. So she was a Spaladin, which is a space paladin.
Yeah.
That's what we call her, at least. But as she was playing, she's definitely more neutral.
Yeah, things are shifting.
She's
spoiler alerts.
Yeah, I guess, but it kind of happens fast. She was surprised herself after that. We talked about it. She was like, I didn't expect the character to go this way, but.
So I feel like what Kristen and Levi are talking about, for those players who do kind of allow the story to kind of discover the character as they go, that can be very helpful to be, like, in constant communication of, like, we were thinking this. David's like that too from Bomb Squad, actually. We actually changed his character sheet because he had this idea. So we built the character. We had a session 0, but you kind of build the character in somewhat of a void, and then it engages with the world. And David had this idea. Iliad was actually going to have a compulsion of lying. He was going to be, he was going much more rogue-ish in his build with some bardic elements, but as he started playing it, and it's kind of just because of David and who he is as a person and
He's
playing
a bard.
the game, right? It just bleeded. I was like, we changed his flaw, we changed some of his stats, because I'm like, you're just not playing the character that way, and it's not a bad thing, but
yeah, but he wasn't able to roll stats the way that he should have,
right.
Like he wasn't able to
just
excel.
wasn't utilizing things that he thought he would utilize, and it's just when rubber meets the road.
Okay, David, if your character's a compulsive liar, you have to be able to remember the lies you told.
No. You have to keep lying. You have to know what the truth is, so that, because compulsive liars do not always remember.
That's true.
What their previous lies were, but you need to know what the truth is, so you don't accidentally say the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
But he was, he had deception. It was open legend, so he had deception and stuff. But as he's playing, he's more of he was persuasion. He never really told lies. He just sweet talked everyone and stuff. And it's just, this is a much smaller microcosm of it. But to have that idea of being in constant communication, as things are changing, and being okay with the change too. I don't know. I might get more stubborn and stuck in things.
I like free flow.
Well,
I love the idea of a fallen paladin too. Just the general concept. Play a character like that.
For those that are talking about their paladin falling and stuff, you do lose a lot. There are ways. This is where I would bring over something from 2E into Pathfinder 1E, is the champion idea and all that, because there's the reason that paladins were so strong before is because you got more out of them by maintaining that alignment. They were hard. It was hard to be a paladin in 1st and 2nd edition of Dungeons and Dragons. You had to roll just right, or you had to roll really well to be those things. And so you were rewarded with those powers. You were rewarded with power as a character for maintaining that alignment. We don't see that as much now in the way that the game has gone on. Even by 3rd edition, the paladin, was strong, but he was strong because he maintained that alignment. By 4th edition and 5th edition of D&D especially, that wasn't really the case. They became a Gish character on purpose. They were a well-designed Gish rather than which new people to tabletop gaming. Gish is a reference to the idea of having a fighter with a martial character with a bit of magic to supplement that, or vice versa. So it was a well-built Gish character on purpose, like from the book.
Yeah.
And
otherwise phrased as a Gish in a can.
Gish in a can. There you go. Canned Gish. I mean,
as opposed to having to like build your own Gish out of mixing classes.
Right.
So I use canned Gish in my recipes, you know. I can make canned Gish.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it tastes good.
All right.
But yeah. Core point being, like, you want them to feel free to explore the story and not to have to just be worse than a fighter because they were following the story where it went. They made interesting narrative choices. You want them to be able to still do stuff. I actually, like if you really wanted to go that route in, like, 2E, I think it'd be really interesting to just fully make your character a fighter afterwards.
In 2E, you could probably work it out where you basically said, okay, you need to strip down to this level of, kind of have an idea about power scaling, and okay, you need to strip down to this power level of fighter, but have story things that they could do to take multi-classing into something else based upon their experiences, maybe, or something along those lines. That might be a way to handle it, since you would drop some feats, but then you would be able to gain back others to get back up to the level you would want. And that might be a way to do it. In 1E, you would probably just need to shift your class around, go through some off-screen training or something like that. Because time can pass really fast if you do it it with just the wave of the hand. Years pass.
Montage.
Yep.
Training montage.
These are not the years you remember. I do tend towards that, again, being more narrative bent. I do like the idea, though, of there being the negative consequences, and they have to pass through that. So having a time of taking the mechanical consequences, but then working through that, either story-wise or montage-y, whatever makes sense, and then transitioning to the new thing. That there needs to be this time of, I did make these choices, and I do have to live with them, and then coming out of that. I think it would both be mechanically enjoyable as well as narratively.
And depending on the strength of the character, it could lead to some really neat drama in the story. Because say you're level 5, that's pretty strong. I mean, in the sense of the world that the character's in, that's pretty strong. And your paladin falls away, that god may outright brand them. And brand them a heretic. That could lead to a lot of interesting play, and that could lead a lot to how the NPCs receive that person. If this was a very common religion, there may be a lot of drama with that. But on that same side, this may push the character that is being played towards a more evil bent, or towards that by being shunned they turn more evil. And that type of situation, kind of like what was brought up by Dan with the idea of the sequence of events for OG Loki, the original Loki, being talked about through there. So
Right.
Okay.
I think that when it comes to changing alignment for at least mechanical purposes, if you want to keep an idea of it mechanically, believe I mentioned this in the implementing alignment. There is that idea of having a chart that would have steps along it in the vertical and horizontal range, and have vertical being order and law, and then horizontal being good and evil. And as the narrative portions went on, they might tick one way or the other, and you might say, hey, you're getting pretty close to... This would allow the characters, and the GM can do this away from every other player. Like, you could talk to each player that needs to shift their alignment a little bit and say, you need to go one tick down, or one tick right, or one tick left. And it gives you a very crunchy way of keeping track and saying, okay, you're getting pretty close to the edge of lawful neutral and lawful good, or you're getting pretty close to the edge of lawful neutral and true neutral, or whatever you want to say. And that can be a way to implement it for people that need the crunch.
Yeah. I think it's also for just, like, helping them. Like, for me personally, I know I have an easy time losing track of, like, what that sort of alignment my character might be considered as. So having, like, someone else from another perspective be like, hey, based on, like, how you've been playing this character, this is where your, like, alignment is moving, would be a helpful perspective for me.
Right. Based on the cosmic alignment, your character's starting to shift this way. Now, and players probably need to be a little aware that their character may not sense that change until signs start happening if their alignment is restricted. If it's not restricted, then they may not notice the change. There's that gradual fade that we mentioned in another one of our chats that happens. Alignment change is a gradual fade from one to the other most of the time. Now, there are those crises of faith that do happen, but in general, they are often a gradual fade from good to evil, or from evil to perhaps redemption and good.
I was wondering, like, do you try to build a character where you have that expectation of that happening, you know, which would be kind of fun. Like, you tell your GM, I don't know, I'm neutral evil, like really evil, and then I want to, I don't know, head to a different part of the map, you know, and let's see how we can get there by the end of this. And it's kind of cool. It kind of changes up the story and makes the character more interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I like that too, if you have a goal.
Yeah, the goal is to do that, and you're like kind of slowly doing that, and the other players don't know. Yeah, and then you're like, wow, you're completely different by the end of this.
The meta goal that you have as the player is affecting the way that the characters' goals are being implemented and things like that. That happens. I think that happens a lot without people realizing it, because most people don't end up staying the alignment that they put down on their character sheet. They end up kind of swaying one way or the other, or a lot of the times the group alignment ends up being the characters' alignments eventually, if they stay together long enough. Even when you have disagreements within the group, that's just a natural thing that can happen, is that, like this. And one thing I didn't necessarily like was that barbarians had to be chaotic. Well, I get the rage thing, but they're not. Those tribal things weren't necessarily chaotic.
Yeah.
But it was there for a reason. Right. They got a big boon out of rage, so that was a mechanical thing, similar to the paladin. The chaotic barbarian and this holy warrior, maybe just a cleric, they form a bond, and they're in this group together, and as the characters are discussing things, the the physical weakness of the cleric is something that the barbarian doesn't like, but he sees something else, the inward strength, that he respects. And so as he's talking with the cleric and things like that, and they maybe butt heads occasionally on different things, his alignment may actually shift closer to what the cleric believes. Even if they're butting heads, he's being won over not by the ideas of the cleric necessarily, or wanting to choose and believe follow their deity, but because his friend that he respects and knows is so devout, they're able to see that and be like, I don't necessarily believe what you do, but I'm going to follow you and help you. And that can shift an alignment without even having to shift who they serve or what they follow as far as beliefs, because of the way that it's done narratively. And a lot of this changing of alignment is a narrative thing, which is why we enjoyed the chat so much, probably because it's very narrative, and all of us like fun narrative things. Changing alignment is something that is, when it's done right, it's something that can be welcomed in to a game, and to the way that the story is being told, and how enriching it can be to see these characters really change to the point that the place they go to when they die changes, because cosmic alignment wise, that's what is going to happen. Someone who dies that is chaotic good is going to Elysium, at least in the Pathfinder setting. Someone who dies that's lawful good is going to heaven. Someone who dies and stuff like that isn't, they're not. They're going somewhere else. We're getting our 10-minute mark. Okay.
And when the Google chat dies.
And when the Google chat dies, it goes straight to... Oh. Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, though.
Right.
I love it.
Okay.
I like flavor. Too much.
Finger licking good. There you go.
With some little firecracker poppers in it.
No, can't give up.
All right. So, final remarks from everybody?
Tell us when you have actually had characters change their alignment and how that worked in the story and how that gelled with your group.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of interesting, nuanced details that can get in with that. Because there are some groups who aren't... Now, I think this is mostly people who, like, read a book and don't have the strong realization of, like, hey, there's no game police gonna swing by and make us do this, enforcing alignment. But, like, I know people who, especially when they started out, have had some experience being, like, locked into their alignment and getting otherwise issues without the opportunity to change their character.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
game masters, GMs, LMs, DMs, work with the drama that is being brought up in your story. Otherwise, you have no story. Like, work with your players. Yeah, it'd be cool. So, all right. Okay, final thing from you, Dan?
I mean, you know what it's going to be. Have fun. And I think through this whole series, it's been communication, too. I mean, that's why we play these games. They're social games that we're talking to each other and we're crafting a story together. So just always be... I mean, for Bomb Squad, I have private DMs with each players. We have the group DM. We're always talking about where we want things to go, where do we think, and then by the time it hits the table, half of it's out the door anyways. So it's like just talking it through, and because the game's always going on, even when you're not playing. Everybody most of the time is thinking it in their heads or thinking about something, and it's so the story's always developing, even when you're not sitting at the table rolling. So,
yep, love everybody. Be flexible.
Be flexible.
That doesn't sound like a very lawful, neutral thing to say. Oh.
Yeah, 100% neutral good over here.
Okie dokie. At least that's what she wants you to believe.
Or it's what he believes and is cosmically wrong about.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that's good.
All right. Well, with that, before anybody gets in trouble, as always,
Too late.
have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
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 This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We forgot to
we're
do
gonna
the
need
pull-up.
topics.
Yep. I got a list.
Oh, the opening, right? Your
yeah.
opening line.
We forgot to do the opening line of "Sit down, travelers. Come in, sit down, warm your feet by the fire, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we discuss chaotic, neutral, chaotic, good, chaotic, evil, changing alignment."
Changing alignments.
There it is.
Yes.
Editing.
Editing. I'm not gonna edit. That's going in the bloopers.
Cool. I was saying, after we were like near the end, I was like, oh, we never did opening night. Should we just shoot it afterwards?
Nah. We'll put it in the bloopers.
I love it.
They'll survive.
Yeah.
You gotta wait till the end to get the intro. Dun dun dun.
Talk about
Chaotic
flipping the
intro.
script. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Dan. So like June, right? June. Yeah.
June? Yes, we're all very excited.
I think my mom will be up too.
Yep.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
my
We're gonna
plan,
have a whole
Levi.
party.
I'm gonna
That should be cool.
swing up there around June. That's gonna be
We're
a
gonna
long
prove whether or not Adam only exists in the internet.
drive. Oh.
That's fair.
Oh no. Something just
Tommy
came
has
up.
proved it.
Yes. That was our running joke the first time Mustache came out. It's like, oh, wait, are we gonna show up? And he's not gonna, it's just a computer screen.
Well, I mean, if I ever do end up playing like Orion or something like that,
Mhm.
the TV head, maybe that should be the joke. I show up to one of your
That would
things and I'm,
Even though you're like right over there.
yeah.
We still put the monitor out. That'd be so good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, I'm very excited. I got well, it doesn't matter. We can talk DM stuff, but
That's fair.
Yep.
Levi does.
But that should be cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be up there a few days, so hopefully we'll be able to do quite a bit of recording,
Ooh.
like around the hearth. Since that'll be neat to have an
Yes.
actual around the hearth in person. I've never done
Yes.
that before.
Dude, I was thinking about, we've got like the electric fireplace we could bring in here.
Yeah.
Brick wall will actually be around a hearth. It would be so good.
Yep.
It does blow
Yeah.
out heat.
Yeah, it would
Oh, nice.
actually be warm.
We won't need it in June.
In
I would-
June,
I know.
Yeah.
We'll
So
probably
you
put
put the AC on and the heat.
Yes.
Just stick the fake fireplace in front of the air conditioner. Just turn the light on, nothing else. But yeah, I was totally thinking of that. We'll just set up chairs or the couch or something right there, have the actual fireplace going.
So depending on who gets to come, that means at least 2 people, 3 people. Man, I haven't had that big of a around the hearth. We'll have to pick something good.
I know, yeah, and however you want to do it. I mean, I haven't told anyone any details or anything yet, other than this one, of course, you know. She ends up finding everything
No
out.
secrets.
But yeah, whatever you want to do, I can make sure to have it pre-planned. Like, you will do this, you will be here.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Okay.
most people can walk.
We have Jake and Zach.
Yeah, they
right
can walk over.
down the street both ways.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go beans. And the
Austin's
chats
the only
are
one that has to drive.
Yeah.
the chats are only like they're only about, I guess, 30. We try to keep it like less than an hour, so You could do lots of different around the hearths in the anime.
Yeah. If you were focused.
Yeah, if I was focused, I could spend a week there and get all my content ready for the rest of the year. But I don't know.
Pretty well.
Don't know that it's a good
let's
idea.
do this.
Rapid fire. Since we will be there with Zach, though, one thing that would be good to discuss is have him there for when we talk about carrying genealogical continuation through campaigns or through characters.
Oh,
Yep.
he would love
Since he's
Yeah.
got a
We were just talking
whole
about
thing.
that on Friday.
Yeah, he's been really talking about how to do it
Carry
in
the
multiple systems.
in multiple systems, how to
how
carry
to
the
keep the
characters
spirit
over.
of the character through it,
Yeah.
even if the stats have to be a little different depending on the system and stuff.
Ooh.
Or even the homebrew setting. Like, obviously, my gnomes are very different from Pathfinder.
Your gnomes are very different. They grow
Yes.
up.
Ooh.
They grow up based on experience, not based
Yep.
on years.
Oh,
Something
okay.
just happened this episode. Oh, it's so good. You
Oh,
won't
one
see
you
for a
just
little
recorded?
While,
Yeah,
Yeah.
last night.
So, like, with a coma, you could have, like, a 10,000-year-old, like, any age person.
Yeah,
Yep.
as a gnome.
Mhm.
Like if
Experience.
Yeah, as one of those gnomes.
but
Well, and her, like, he plays a mom, and her kids are always switching who's the oldest of their experiences.
Ooh.
yeah, because right now, Pim Pam's getting a lot of experience, and
Yep.
she's
She's the oldest.
She aged up from the youngest to the oldest.
Ooh.
In one.
Oh, that is such an interesting sibling dynamic.
yeah, she started the series breastfeeding.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
Yep. Quite literally.
yeah, as a
that's an
baby.
experience.
Oh, it's so cool.
It's also, man, that would affect the way that gnomes. That would so heavily affect the way gnomes behaved. So
Yeah. Like, once you get old enough, you need to, like, literally stop having experiences.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
why they are always seeking, in a way, seeking death, as are called guys.